It was the kind of fog that swallowed sound. Highway 41 stretched for miles through flat nothingness, just cracked asphalt. The occasional gas station light miles apart, and that heavy, endless gray hanging over everything like a curtain. I was driving home from a friend's wedding in Indiana, heading south toward Kentucky. It was around 2 a.m. Cold, the kind of cold that seeps through the vents even when the heater's running. I hadn't seen another car in at least 15 minutes. That's when I saw her. A lone figure standing on the shoulder of the road, barely visible through the mist. At first, I thought it was a trick of the fog, maybe a road sign or mailbox. But as I got closer, my headlights picked her out clearly. A young woman, maybe mid-20s, wearing a dark jacket and jeans, one arm raised slightly like she was trying to flag me down. I slowed. Something about it didn't feel right. That much fog, that much emptiness. But leaving someone alone out there in freezing temperatures? It didn't sit right with me either. I rolled down the window a few inches and called out, "You okay? You need a ride?" Her voice was soft, shaky, and please. My car broke down. I pulled over, hazards blinking in the fog. She climbed in slowly, clutching a small backpack. She was pale, damp hair sticking to her face. I tried to smile, maybe to make her feel at ease. "You picked a bad night to get stranded." She gave a weak laugh, barely audible. "Yeah, bad luck, I guess." We drove in silence for a few minutes. I noticed her eyes, wide, darting to the mirrors, the windows, the road ahead. Something about her wasn't just tired. She looked terrified. "You sure you're okay?" I asked. She hesitated. "Someone stopped earlier. Said they'd help me, but..." She trailed off, shaking her head. I didn't push. The fog thickened until the world outside the windshield disappeared completely. I slowed to 30 just to keep the yellow lines in view. "Where are you headed?" "There's a diner a few miles down," she said quickly, like she'd been waiting to mention it. "If you could just drop me there," I nodded. "Sure thing." But as we went on, the unease started crawling under my skin. Something didn't add up. I hadn't seen any diner lights through the fog. No road signs, nothing. And the way she kept glancing over her shoulder, maybe it wasn't random. It was like she expected someone to be following. I checked the rearview mirror. Headlights in the distance. At first I was relieved, another car finally. But the feeling didn't last. Those lights were getting closer. Too fast. I moved to the right lane to let them pass. The headlights stayed centered behind me. The woman noticed too. Her breathing quickened. "That's him," she whispered. "Who?" She didn't answer. Her hands were gripping the seatbelt so tightly her knuckles went white. The car behind us flashed its high beams once. Then again, "Do you know that guy?" I asked, voice lower now. She finally turned to me. "Don't stop." Something about the way she said it, absolute fear, kicked my adrenaline into overdrive. I pressed harder on the gas, trying to get distance. But the car behind matched every move. He stayed about 30 feet back, lights glaring in the mirror. Then, without warning, the car behind us swerved into the opposite lane, accelerated, and pulled up beside me. I glanced over. The driver's window was open. A man inside, maybe mid-40s, pale face half lit by his dashboard. He was smiling. The woman next to me ducked down, trembling. "He followed me from the gas station," she said in a whisper. "He said he could fix my car. When I told him no, he just wouldn't leave." The man's car drifted closer, like he was trying to run us off the road. I slammed the brakes. He shot ahead, then slowed again, blocking the lane. My heart was pounding. There was nowhere to go, dense fog on both sides, no exits, no visible shoulder. Then I saw it. Faint neon glow ahead. A sign. "Jim's 24-hour diner, 2 miles." I floored it. The tires screamed on the wet asphalt. The man's car stayed close, weaving, trying to cut me off. But I didn't let up. I kept my eyes fixed on that flickering neon. When the diner lights finally appeared through the fog, I yanked the wheel into the gravel lot, horn blaring. The guy's car followed. But when I jumped out, waving and yelling for help, 2 truckers came out from the diner door. Big guys, both over 6 feet. The man's headlights blinked once, and then he reversed, spinning gravel, disappearing into the mist the way he came. Inside the diner, the waitress brought us coffee. My hands were still shaking so hard I nearly spilled it. The woman, I never even caught her name, just sat there staring out the window into the fog. The truckers called the county sheriff. When the deputy showed up 20 minutes later, he took our statements. They ran the plates I gave them. The deputy came back pale. That car was reported stolen out of Missouri 3 days ago. The owner's missing. I looked at the woman. She didn't react, just kept staring out the window, whispering something under her breath. When I leaned closer, I heard her say it. "He'll find another one." The deputy offered to drive her to the next town. She refused, said she'd wait until morning. When I left, the fog was still thick, curling around the diner lights like smoke. A week later, I called the sheriff's office to ask if they'd found her. They hadn't. The officer on the line said no one by her description had checked in, and the security camera at the diner had malfunctioned that night. But here's the part that haunts me. A month later, I was driving the same route again, daylight this time. Near the spot where I'd first seen her, there was a small wooden cross by the roadside, fresh flowers tied to it. And hanging from the cross, swaying gently in the wind, was a single keychain, a silver tag that read, "Jim's Diner." I used to drive long-haul freight from Texas to Ohio. 12-hour nights, caffeine for blood, engine noise for company. Truckers see things other people never do. Deer frozen in headlights, wrecks still smoking when you roll past, and sometimes things that don't make the evening news because no one survives to report them. This happened in November 2015, somewhere along I-40 outside Little Rock. It had been raining since sunset, thin gray sheets that blurred the asphalt into glass. Dispatch told me to stop and rest, so I pulled into a place called High Plains Truck Stop and Motel. Half fuel station, half dying roadside motel with 10 rooms and a buzzing neon vacancy sign. The kind of spot where you pay cash and nobody asks for ID. The lot was nearly empty except for 2 rigs and a pickup parked near the far end. I fueled up, grabbed a stale sandwich, then decided to rent a room so I could shower and catch a few hours of sleep. The woman at the counter looked exhausted, makeup smudged, eyes red. Her name tag read Marion. When I signed the logbook, I noticed something strange. Every name before mine had the same check-in time, 11 p.m. And every line after the first 3 had been crossed out in thick marker. "Slow night?" I asked. She gave a tired smile. "Always is when it rains." Room 7 was at the end of the row beside an ice machine that rattled like a dying engine. The room smelled of mildew and cheap disinfectant. Floral curtains, single lamp, carpet so worn you could see the concrete underneath. I showered, ate half the sandwich, and lay down. The hum of trucks idling outside was almost comforting. I was drifting off when something made me sit up, a thud against the wall behind the headboard. Then another. It came again, slow, rhythmic, like someone knocking but trying not to be heard. I got up, pressed my ear to the wall. Silence. Then, a muffled voice. A woman's, "Help." Barely a whisper, but clear. I hesitated. Probably just a TV in the next room. But curiosity wins over logic when you're alone in a cheap motel at 2 a.m. I stepped outside. Room 8's door, the one next to mine, was closed. No light showing through the curtains. I knocked softly. No answer. Then the rain stopped. Just like that. No drizzle, no fade out. Silence so thick I could hear my own pulse. I started back toward my room. And that's when I saw the pickup truck at the edge of the lot. Its driver's side door hung open. Engine off. Headlights dead, but there were wet boot prints leading from it straight toward room 8. I went inside, locked my door, turned the TV on low to drown the noise. But I couldn't stop thinking about that voice. Half an hour later, I heard the thud again. Then the sound of metal scraping, like a chain dragging across concrete. I opened the curtain just a crack. Through the rain-smeared window, I could see shadows moving near the pickup. One tall shape, one smaller. Then the tall one crouched down, opened something. The truck bed, maybe. And the smaller shape stopped moving. I grabbed my phone to call 911. No service. The motel's Wi-Fi login screen kept looping. I thought about running to the office, but the front lot was dark except for that buzzing neon sign. My instincts screamed, stay inside. Then a knock. 3 slow taps on my door. "Marion?" I said, voice shaking, no answer. Another 3 taps. I looked through the peephole. Nothing but the distorted shape of someone standing too close. When I flipped the safety latch, it clicked louder than I expected. The figure outside shifted, then started to turn the handle. I slammed the latch back in place, stepped away from the door. The knob rattled once, twice, then stopped. 5 minutes later, headlights swept across the curtains and a truck pulling in. Relief hit like oxygen. I opened the door a crack. A highway patrol car rolled slowly into the lot. The trooper, mid-50s, stepped out, hat low against the drizzle. I ran to him, trying to explain, stumbling over my words. He told me to stay behind him. We walked to room 8. He knocked. No answer. He tried again, then used his flashlight to peek through the blinds. His voice went flat. "Call the county," he said into his radio. "Possible 1054. He told me to wait by the cruiser." From where I stood, I saw him push the door open. The light flickered inside, and then the smell hit even from 20 feet away. Metallic, rotten, unmistakable. They closed off the motel until sunrise. I sat in the diner next door giving my statement, still shaking. The trooper told me later they found a woman's body in room 8, wrapped in a motel shower curtain, throat bruised. The pickup belonged to a drifter wanted for assault 2 states over. They never caught him. When the sun came up, the fog rolled off the highway like smoke from something burning. I paid for my coffee, got back in my truck, and drove east without looking in the mirrors. 2 months later, dispatch sent me through Arkansas again. Out of habit, I slowed where the old exit used to be, but the High Plains truck stop and motel wasn't there. The whole lot had been bulldozed, just a patch of gravel, a single lamppost still standing, and a handmade sign stuck in the dirt, closed for renovation. But as I passed, I caught sight of something half buried in the mud behind the sign, a rusted key fob, room number etched into the tag, where every long-distance driver knows there's a point sometime between 3 and 5 in the morning when the road starts whispering to you. The hum of tires turns hypnotic. The lines blur together, and it feels like the highway is pulling you forward by instinct alone. That's when mistakes happen. I was making a straight shot from Reno to Salt Lake City in December 2019. It was just before Christmas. Bone-dry cold. The desert lit by a waning moon. I'd been up for 20 hours, pushing to make a delivery deadline before the holiday shutdown. The dispatcher warned me about icy stretches near the Utah border, but traffic was almost non-existent. Just me, my pickup, and the endless black ribbon of I-80. Around 3:40 a.m., the fuel gauge dipped lower than I liked. The GPS said the next open station was 26 miles away, so I figured I'd risk it. That's when I noticed a green highway sign flash by in the headlights. Exit 132, rest area, fuel, 1 mile. The GPS didn't show it. No reviews, no marker, but the idea of hot coffee and a restroom beat 26 empty miles, so I took the ramp. The exit curved down into a shallow valley, headlights cutting across sagebrush and frost. Then the road leveled out and the gas station canopy appeared ahead. 2 lonely pumps, fluorescent lights flickering, a small convenience store attached. The sign on top read Silver Run Services. I remember thinking how quiet it was. No truck engines idling, no highway noise, not even the wind. Just the buzzing of the lights and the crunch of gravel under my tires. Inside, the store looked frozen in time. Racks of expired snacks, dusty coffee pots, faded posters for energy drinks that hadn't been sold in years. A single security camera blinked above the counter. A man came out from the back room wiping his hands on a rag. Late 40s, heavy-build trucker cap pulled low. "You headed east or west?" He asked. "East, long haul." He nodded. "Roads slick past Bonneville. You be careful." Something about his tone didn't feel friendly or unfriendly, just measured. I paid cash for fuel and grabbed coffee that tasted like cardboard. As I turned to leave, he said, "If you need rest, motels across the lot. 25 for the night, cash only." I almost said no, but fatigue won. I'd been nodding off for miles. "Sure," I said. One night. The motel turned out to be a row of prefab units behind the station, maybe 8 doors total. Only one other car was parked there, an old maroon sedan with frost on the windshield. My room key had a cracked tag, room 3 inside. Bare bulb, linoleum floor, heater rattling in the corner. I set my duffel down and stretched out on the bed, fully clothed. I was out cold within minutes. I woke to a bang. It wasn't thunder. It was too sharp, too close. My first thought was that someone had slammed a door. I checked my phone, 4:27 a.m. The heater had stopped. Silence filled the room. Then came another sound. Soft, deliberate footsteps outside, crunching in the frost, stopping right outside my door. I held my breath. A faint shadow moved under the gap between the door and floor. Then a metallic scrape, like something being dragged across concrete. It stopped, then moved again. I crept to the window and lifted the curtain an inch. The parking lot lights buzzed faintly. The maroon sedan was still there. Beside it, half in shadow, a man stood with something long and thin in his hand. Looked like a tire iron. He wasn't moving. Just facing my door. When you're bone-tired and half awake, your brain argues with itself. Maybe he's fixing his car. Maybe he's not even looking at you. But then he raised the tire iron and tapped it lightly against the metal door. Tap, tap, tap. That sound woke me up more effectively than any coffee ever could. I grabbed my phone again. No signal. Same as before. The GPS map was blank white. I checked the window again. The man was gone. I packed up fast, heart racing. As I opened the door, the cold hit me like a wall. The lot looked empty. I jogged to my truck, started the engine, headlights washing over the store. The clerk's car, an old white pickup, was gone too. I put the truck in gear, eager to get back on the ramp. But when I turned onto the access road, I noticed something. The fog had rolled in so thick I couldn't see more than 10 feet ahead. I drove slow, high beams, cutting tunnels through gray. The GPS still showed nothing. No highway markers, no mileage. 5 minutes later, I passed a shape on the roadside. A dark vehicle pulled halfway into the ditch. Maroon sedan. Driver's side door open. I should have kept going. Every survival instinct said, don't stop. But guilt is a powerful thing. I braked, rolled the window down, called out, you okay? No answer. I stepped out, leaving the engine running. The air smelled like wet metal and exhaust. The driver's seat was empty, but the headlights were still on. A faint smear of something dark streaked the door handle. Looked like oil or grease. Then I heard it again. That same scrape. Metal against concrete, except now it was coming from behind me near the fuel station. I turned. Through the fog, maybe 50 yards away, I saw a figure standing at the base of the ramp. Same silhouette as before. Holding that tire iron, he wasn't moving toward me. Just standing there, blocking the way back to the highway. I jumped into my truck, slammed the lock, and floored it. The wheels spun on the frost before catching traction. When I looked in the mirror, the figure was still there, half lost in fog, arms slowly raising as if to wave. It took nearly 15 minutes before the fog began to thin and the main interstate signs reappeared. When I merged back onto I-80, my GPS flickered alive. I pulled over at the next well-lit rest stop and called the Utah Highway Patrol. They ran the location I gave them, exit 132, Silver Run services, but the dispatcher paused. Sir, there's no exit 132 in that stretch. Closest numbered exit is 129. You sure about the name? I insisted. She promised to send a unit anyway. The next day, after a few hours sleep, I called back. The officer on duty said they'd driven that section of highway twice. No gas station, no motel. Just open desert and an old access road that ended at a chain-link fence. He sounded skeptical until I mentioned the maroon sedan. Then his voice changed. We found a vehicle matching that description abandoned off an old frontage road. Registered to a woman reported missing out of Nevada last week. He asked if I could describe the man I'd seen. I told him everything. Height, clothes, the tire iron. They took my statement, thanked me, and that was that. A few months later, I was back on that route again, broad daylight this time. Curiosity got the better of me. Around where I remembered the exit, there was a dirt turnoff, half-erased tire tracks, and the remains of a signpost bent nearly flat. No words on it, just a faint outline of letters that might once have read Silver Run. I didn't stop. Sometimes when the road gets quiet near dawn, I think about that man standing in the fog. How calm he looked, how certain that I'd eventually stop again. I still drive nights, but I plan my fuel stops now and I never take unmarked exits, no matter how tired, no matter how tempting that promise of coffee before sunrise. Because somewhere out there in the desert, there's a place that shouldn't exist anymore. And maybe, if you take the wrong ramp at the wrong hour, it still does.